I'm heading up to H to go and see my girlfriend. I'm a struggling actor, and I'm struggling so badly that most of the time I haven't got any work at all. Exactly. So I'm making the most of not having anything to do by going somewhere else. Anything I can do is the honest answer to that. I mean, I'd love to do more theatre work, that would be fantastic. My dream ever since I was a kid was to be at the RSC. But it's difficult enough getting into acting, let alone getting on the stage at the RSC.
I've just dropped the wife off at the airport. She's on her way to X. She comes from X, and we are in the process of selling our house in C and moving to X. And she is going to basically put her parents' minds at rest that I can manage the thing.
Well, originally North London, 4 years, cheaper property. Yeah, crazy. I've still got relatives in London, so I know what house prices are like up there. It's crazy.
To be brutally honest with you, I've never picked up a hitchhiker before in my life. Just took one quick glance at you, looked like a decent guy, you've only got a backpack, you looked like you needed a hand. Just saw you and I thought you looked like you were in need. I'm actually just going to go to the post office to pick up a letter, but yeah, we can stop wherever you need to stop. We could do that for you. This isn't a route I normally take, so that was a purely chance meeting.
Like I say, I can probably take you quite a fair way, because I'll go in back end of Notesville and drop you off a few extra junctions. I always tend to stop, to be fair. If somebody needs help, why not help them? And I'd like to think that if I was having to hitchhike somewhere, that somebody would pick me up. I always think, if I'm going that way, why not? Like I say, I hope I don't get raped and murdered one day, but so far I've been lucky.
I don't like to see people struggling, basically, do you know what I mean? I'm going this way, I've got a 4 or 5 seater car, you look pretty okay, you don't look like you're going to pull out a knife and stab me, so... You know, it was the on your knees with your hands clasped that gave it away, really.
I'm going to D, mate, if that's any good. Just finished work and I'm going home. I do white lining, road markings. Don't know if I'm honest. Never picked anyone up before. I'm always in lorry when I see people. And they always said I'd stop, but it's got cameras in, so I'm not allowed, like. Yeah, every day. Yeah. It's a nightmare at this time.
I was going for an interview, actually. Average. It's not my best interview. It's one of the first interviews I've done in like 7 years. Got made redundant a couple of months ago, so I'm out of work.
So what it is today, we're travelling down from M to Elshire to collect a... what is it again?
Trailer tent.
A trailer tent.
No, when I was at school I wanted to be a marine biologist. Academically I was lazy, so after a few years of bouncing around the country trying to figure out what I was going to do, I ended up working in IT, and that was actually quite a good fit. I was an IT technician until I was 44. But that was when my marriage fell apart and I thought, okay, so now what? I'm stuck in a job that I ended up hating, so I quit. I went travelling. I worked in Y on a marine conservation project for a couple of months, which was a fulfilment of a dream. Got back, thought, what do I do now? Oh, I know. I've always enjoyed acting. Fuck it, I'll give it a go. See if I can do it. So I got on an acting course in London, completed that and graduated, and have had 2 jobs in the last 2 years. That's more than some, yeah. Exactly.
I was in the restaurant business in London for 28 years, got made redundant last year, and I'm actually a chauffeur at the moment. I spent a year chauffeuring and realised that although the turnover's great, by the time you get down to bottom line, it's absolutely nothing. And do I really want to spend the next 15 years of my existence driving up and down the motorway? we're kind of at a juncture in our lives, like a fork in the road, and we're deciding that we're going to live a completely different life right in the middle of the countryside in X. We're going to go back to nature and maybe open some kind of plant food kitchen and give the kids a different perspective on life. Although they're both, I've got a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old, and they're both fluent in the language already, so the only one the language has a problem with is me.
I've got 2 daughters, 24 and 22. They don't say too much. They can listen to my dash cam. They get hold of a memory card out of it, they're good.
I am in P. Yeah, I've been here 6 years. Moved up from S. No, it's financial reasons. It's very, very expensive in S. Children were 24, 19. It was just time to think about them. It's gaining independence, basically. We weren't going to be able to do it in S.
Where are you aiming for? This is just research for a book, is it? You're brave. I've never done it. I always said I would, just to see what it were like.
I worked for Blank previously, and they kind of imploded. It went from 2,000 staff down to 150. Got bought out, and then, when they got bought out, that 150 went down to less than 50. So that's where we're at. Pretty much, it happens every time. They get inspected, audited, the audit didn't go very well, so from there on it changes. It's hard to get back out of the rut, but that's me at the moment. I've managed to take a month out, get some rest, start my own company, get a holiday, and get back on it. Yeah, I hope so. There's always better candidates, but I hope so.
Costs nothing to be nice. No, bloody hell. Well, that's it. They'll just look at you, laugh, and carry on. We're old-fashioned. If someone's had an house fire, today's generation, they'll get their phone out and start recording, whereas it costs nothing to get off your ass, get in there and try to help. Do you know what I mean?
It's not many people who'd help out like us. If we see someone there struggling, even cars and that, ain't we? Loads of times we pull over and help.
Pull over, help them fix the car, and then back on your way.
She came to England about 17 years ago. She came to England after she was working for a diplomat in the Z. She came to England to improve her English. She just planned to stay here for a year, and she met me, and I obviously put a major spanner in the works. She's sacrificed a lot for me. We moved to C 9 years ago. I'm from C originally. Part of Exian culture is to stay at home with the kids until they've finished their first year at school, which my youngest daughter has now done. But being at home for 9 years, that has really has a bit of an impact on your self-confidence. Chuck a bit of Brexit in on top as well, and she's feeling like the country doesn't love her anymore. So we're just at that fork in the road and deciding what we want to do with the rest of our lives. I've certainly changed a lot over the last couple of years, and looking for a fresh challenge. The challenge of facing the motorway for the next 15 years, well, it doesn't really inspire me a great deal.
It's going to be tough though, isn't it? It's just going to be tough. Let's hope I start off a good day for you. How have you been getting around then? And in the name of research, why not? It can be exciting, it can be dangerous, it can be connections that you never knew were going to happen. Yeah, it can be many things.
As you can tell by the monotonal accent, I'm from Gapshire. So born and bred in Blanksford, now live in Notesville. Unfortunately, the children have lost their Gapshire accent. We sometimes have to send them back up to grandparents just so they can get a little bit of a Gapshire twang back in them. Blanksford's always going to be my hometown, but it's always been a very poor area of the country. Not a lot of investment, and now it's just a better lifestyle, really, for the kids and the family. Different. Very, 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 very different. I've got a lot of diverse friends, Asian, Muslim, English, etc. My best friends are Sikh, but growing up in Blanksford, there was a lot of racism. I'm ashamed to say my parents are still of that nature, grandparents are the same. They had bad thoughts of the immigration coming in, especially from the Pakistani community. And obviously we had the riots and things during that time that I was growing up, and it seemed to be a bit segregated. There's still a bit of that going on, but I'm about as far from being racist as I possibly can. I enjoy the company of anybody. White, black, Greek, Asian, don't make a difference to me.
Yeah, and born and bred. My dad came over from India when he was 19 and settled there. Went to XYZ Bearings factory. He's actually a jazz musician. Yeah, he's 87 and still playing. He plays guitar, he's played all his life. He taught himself and yeah, he's really good. He plays the keyboard now, his fingers are not so nimble as they used to be. He was 19 and he met my mum. I think they got married in 1958 and I was born in 59. Yeah, he was self-taught. I don't know what the state of the guitar was like, but it was probably a self-made thing. As I say, he's still playing. He's 87. He's a bit of a John Lee Hooker, you know, my hero. And he's got the oldest roadie in town. I have to take all his gear from him and I'm 60. He doesn't do long distance now. He plays at a hotel once a month and he'll probably do a couple of weddings and stuff.
Mum and Dad did their thing, and we as kids looked after ourselves, to be honest. Mum and Dad spent most of their time looking after the business and trying to get money into the family, trying to put food on the table. Which worked alright, they've done alright, they're happily retired now. So yeah, in terms of the family, everyone's successful-ish. 2 of my sisters have their own business. My brother's in computer software contracting, so he's doing really well. And then there's myself at the moment, that's just starting again.
It's horrific, yeah. I'm in a really lucky position whereby I've got a bit of money behind me, so I haven't got to work. I can spend all of my time saying, I'm going to be an actor, I'm going to apply for acting jobs, and if it's not an acting job, then I'm not going to do it. But I've got friends who are working 50, 60 hours a week just to live in London, and they also have to be available all the time, at any time, for casting. I don't know how they do it, I really don't. It's vicious. It's a really brutal industry. And, you know, you've got to have skin as thick as a rhino to do it. And most important thing is not to care about rejection. If you're worried about getting rejection, worst possible thing you can do.
Originally, I trained as a chef in Cambridge. And back in the late 80s, there was not really any kind of restaurant scene going on in Cambridge. So you had to go to London. And I'd already been dazzled by the bright lights at 11, 12 years old when my dad took me. He had to drop something off in Piccadilly, and he took me there. And I got a bit dazzled by the lights. wanted to go to London. I was always hungry as a kid, constantly hungry, and whatever I was fed, I always wanted more. I spent a lot of the time with my nan, where she taught me how to cook, and she would fill my stomach for me, and that never really left. You know, also 80, 81, parents getting divorced. It's a bit of a messy divorce, so that disrupted education, and so I didn't really do very well at school, but I was pretty good with food, so I sort of stayed with food and went to college and moved to London.
Dry lining, plasterboarding, working on 10,000 houses just over near where I picked you up. I think that'll see me out somehow. We've done about 700-800 so far. It's massive. Yeah, near BH, out there.
I'm pretty open and honest. I suffer from anxiety. I've had a little bit of a difficult time over the last 6 months. I left a previous employer and it didn't go down very well, and we had a bit of a court battle, and it's not been great. And it's really brought up this condition of mine and made the anxiety 10 times worse. I have very, very strange dreams about bad things going to happen to me, like the end of the world, or just thoughts of dread. The weirdest dream I've had recently was that I literally woke up believing that I couldn't speak or walk. And it was one of those dreams where it was so real that I was trying to wake myself up from it, and I could see that I was dreaming, and I could feel I was dreaming, but I just couldn't actually wake myself up. Your mind's always creating other things for you to worry about, which is one of the most difficult things. You get over a worry, but then your mind creates another worry, and funnily enough, a psychiatrist was telling me the story why. He says, if you can imagine the UK at the moment, it's always on high terror alert, so we are always prepared for the eventuality that something's going to happen. He says your brain's exactly the same. The brain's always constantly giving you things to worry about because it's always on high alert, so that you're able to be prepared to deal with an actual emergency. Even though you may not have any crisis in your life, your mind creates one in order to keep you constantly on high alert. You're never able to sort of just let things relax and have no crisis in your life because your mind creates one on purpose to give you that sense.
I was actually in army, come out of army, suffered from PTSD, depression, had a nervous breakdown, and when I come round I had all tattoos on my face. I did, yeah. I went to Iraq, Afghan. Horrible. Well, I enjoyed it in a weird way. I'd do it again, yeah, absolutely. Officially, 6 years, but I was recovering because I got injured for 18 months. Afghan. We got ambushed and a bomb went off near me. Obviously, I've still got all my ligaments, but it shattered my bones, all on my left side. So I got I don't know if you can see, my hand's come away there, my hand and all of my left arm. There's still a counsellor I can go and see if I want to, but it's always me making the effort and that, so I don't. I'm alright now. This happened a long time ago. My cousin, he died the same ambush I was in, so yeah, I'm lucky really. I lost a lot of friends out there, yeah, unfortunately. I tried killing myself. I tried hanging myself after I come out. It actually helped with my PTSD because I've got brain damage to my memory, so I can't remember a lot of my time in the army. Do you know what I mean? It kind of worked. Kind of helped in a way, yeah. I was hanging for that long that I damaged my memory. In a way, it's helped me. When I meet up with old mates from army, they're telling me stories and I can't remember, even though I was there. I can't even remember my soldier number. Every ex-forces, it's well, you remember that. I was Green Jackets. We went in together. He was a year older. He waited for me to go in so I could leave school. It's all we wanted to do when we were growing up. Then he come out for a bit, did IT, got an IT job for about 9 months, and he hated it. So he went back in. 6 months later, he was in Afghan with us. Again. Yeah. It's shit. Yeah, I'm quite lucky in a way. You see, homeless people, ex-forces, I can't get my head around that. When you're giving your life to the country, literally their life, and then they can't even get a roof over their head, it just seems madness to me. So as I say, I'm quite fortunate.
That's it. See, that's why you can't take no one at face value. You do that and, we've seen people in the past who you'd imagine they're nothing like what they look like. They might look like someone you'd never ever taken for. And then you get speaking and, you realise that actually, it changes your perception on life.
They say don't judge a book by its cover, though.
That's it, yeah.
Don't judge a book by its cover.
One of our mates is an ex-SAS sniper, and you'd never ever see it. You know, wonderful, absolutely brilliant person. This time, probably 30 years ago, you'd have had a lot of people stop. No doubt about it. But now, how many people have drove past? Well, that's it.
I met her in 1984 on an adventure island holiday in the Inner Hebrides in Scotland. She was 13, I was 14. Or was she 12 and I was 13? Something like that. And we got on really well. There was a group of us on that holiday, and me and Rebecca stayed in touch as pen pals for years. We met up again when we were about 18 or 19, I think, in London, just for the day. Then I went off to and university and all the rest of it, and we sort of lost touch. And then about 10 years ago, I suppose, Rebecca contacted me on Facebook, and we started sharing what was going on in our lives and all the rest of it. At the time, I was still married. She was married as well. We just kept abreast of what was going on in each other's lives. I knew about her marriage breakup. She knew about mine. She knew about me going into acting. And I thought, I'm down in London, so we should meet up. So we did. And yeah, it was like, oh my God, I never found you attractive 20, 30 years ago. What the hell is going on? So yeah, it's really good. It's really, really nice.
I think the first thing that we really need to do is get the kids into school, then get them settled. And also the wife's got to be the priority because she's sacrificed so much. I mean, me, I would happily do anything, whether it's pick fruit in the fields or dig up potatoes or work on some building site. I would do anything. But ideally, I'd like to do something that involves giving something back. You know, I had some amazing experiences over the last year with plant medicine, and I've had my consciousness expanded. Okay, well, maybe there's quite a lot of different sorts of plant medicines. There's things like, I don't know if you've heard of ayahuasca. So there's this one called Bufo alvarius. Now, Bufo alvarius is the Sonorian desert frog. And this particular frog stays underground for 9 months of the year, comes out for 3 months, mates, and then goes back under. But in its glands, it has something, and it's the only animal that contains this, and it's called a 5-MeO-DMT, the God molecule, where ayahuasca gives you like different psychedelic experiences. The frog medicine, the toad medicine, doesn't give you the psychedelics, but it does give you a much more spiritual experience. It sort of opened up my eyes to who I am and what life is all about. Well, not necessarily what life is all about, but just how insignificant we are as human beings. And it kind of fills your heart with a lot of love. And this was a ceremony in London. It was run by a particular shaman, and I have to say he was really good. I mean, there's quite a strict procedure with regards to fasting and making sure that you're well prepared and the setting is exactly as it should be. Actually, next week I'm going to another ceremony, but it's not a bufo, it's a fire and cacao ceremony. Basically like chocolate medicine. Cacao. It's basically chocolate. It opens up your heart and it just expands your consciousness and, you know, opens your heart to love. I didn't do this lightly. This has been something which I've been interested in for a number of years. You do your research and you wait for your calling. And my calling came early this year.
To be honest, I used to travel over a building. I always picked up the blokes that deliver the lorries and all that. Like the plates and all that. Because I was on my own driving, so it was just someone to talk to. It doesn't bother me. If someone wants to lift, it's fine. You don't see blokes with plates anymore. In the last 2 years, I don't think I've seen any, really.
I play a bit of guitar, but not really. Roofing takes it out of your hands so much, so it's not much good, really. Everything's aching.
We've only just started living together, which is why I've got the sat-nav on to get to hers. Facebook, actually. Yeah, a bit strange, actually. People post all their personal stuff, don't they, which I don't understand. Then they moan when people butt in their lives. I'm like, well, stop writing your personal shit then. Then you're not giving anyone the chance. It's crazy, isn't it? I don't know if she added me or I added her. I can't remember. We've been friends for a while, but we just never spoke. And then, actually, on suggested friends, she come up under a different name. So I messaged her, because she was saying she had trouble with an ex-boyfriend and blah, blah, blah. So I messaged her to see if she's got another account or if it's her boyfriend trying to add folk and whatnot. And she said she had, and we just got talking from there. Yeah, she's an hairdresser and nail tech. She's self-employed. She's like mobile and stuff, so she can pick and choose what hours she does. She got kids, so it works for her with the school run and stuff.
It's a strange scenario. It's one of those where you get made redundant and you never think it's going to happen to you. And when you do, you kind of become bitter and have to start again. But you have to wipe the redundancy out of your head a little bit, because if you take it to interviews, you're going to struggle. It happens. It's business at the end of the day. My old man, as well as having the shop, he used to work for British Railways, so he had an apprenticeship in train engineering and design. He did that pretty much for 40 odd years, and then same thing happened. He got made redundant. But thankfully Dad went into contracting afterwards, which worked out better for him, in terms of money, in terms of experience as well. He worked on a lot more different projects, and it took him a lot further. And actually it secured him financially as well.
I'd say it's because of the media. Because the media likes separation, it likes segregation. They want to control who does what, who speaks to who. Like racism. Racism today is mostly because of the media. We live in a very multicultural area, and you've got the media comes in and tries to split us up. At the end of the day, our landlord, he's Asian, and we live in an area where there's lots of Asians, and it comes down to how they're brought up as well. I mean, some of those Asians, they're brought up to hate whites, but we were brought up, you respect and you treat how you want to be treated.
You'd probably call it a midlife crisis. You kind of wonder, who am I? Where am I going? What is life all about? And I'm certainly at that kind of stage. But what Bufo has done to me, it's opened a door. It doesn't cure anything, but it opens a door and shows you a light, and then you make your own choices. But the ego is a strong thing, so dissolution of that ego is something which certainly one session wasn't enough. I've had 2 separate ceremonies earlier this year. I went much more deeper on the last session. My first session really was just all about ecstasy and beauty. I didn't meet my demons, where in the last session I met my demons. Not that you can put it into any kind of words, there are no words for it. To be able to articulate what happened on that day, there are no words to express it. But it's something that I'm so glad that I've done. I feel like a soul in a shell, and this is just an opportunity for my soul to express itself and feel something tangible. I mean, my mother died of cancer earlier in March after a ridiculously short battle, diagnosed and dead within 11 weeks. And I think what that really did for me was it gave me some comfort. If I can try and articulate it in some way, when you smoke this Bufo, you fall back and you just feel that every atom, every particle of your body just disappears. You become part of the universe. I felt this real comfort. It took away any fear of death that I may have had. I mean, of course, I've got my 2 children. I wouldn't like them to come home to find out that Daddy's been stabbed and robbed and dead. But yeah. also it gave me a feeling that I know my mother is in a beautiful place and she's going to be back to source, and you know, I feel the same way. I feel at the time I have less left on this planet, that I want to do everything I can to be good, to take care of whatever I can, to be good to people, to be good to myself, you know, to learn to love yourself. You can't really love other people until you really learn how to love yourself. There's still a lot of questions. I've not finished by a long shot.
Just found out, bloke I used to play cricket with, he just died at 51, heart attack. And he never drank, smoked, did nothing. Young kids, or youngish like, yeah, real shock. I'd lost a bit of contact with him, just found out he died back in August, September. I packed it in now. I used to play, not anymore.
I'd known since I was a child that there's much more to a human being than we envisage in the 3D, as I call it, the three-dimensional journey that we take with other people. The spiritual aspects of the human is largely ignored. I tried to ignore it. Like my whole life wasn't going well from the ages of about 7 to 50. I'd put myself and my inner needs on the shelf for 40 years, and it wasn't until I started to try and release them that I realised that the feelings I had were also connected to my mental health challenges. See, I'd suffered from depression for a long time. I'd also had intermittently psychotic episodes that I now understand are born out of not living in the right mind and body space. And that came about through needing to understand my own journey, and that took a lot of work, that took a lot of courage. That nearly ended my existence completely. But all I had to do was relinquish control of myself to that spiritual entity and surrender. And once I'd done that, the whole of me changed. And now I live for the past 2 years in my home self.
There's not a lot of stuff that you can do about it, to be fair. You've got to sort of try and rationalise it yourself. Speaking to people about it really helps. Getting your feelings out and talking to others. I try and play a lot of sports. I play a lot of tennis and things like that, just to try and calm your mind and whatnot. But yeah, it's just really, really difficult. You got to try and keep yourself busy, and in my job it's difficult because I spend so much time driving. Things just pop into my head for no particular reason whatsoever, and then you're sitting on your own rethinking about it, and the craziest thing about it is you're always questioning everything you do when you've got anxiety. I've tried to seek help for it, of course. The counsellor's given me techniques of being able to try and clear my mind. One of the techniques works something along the lines of, imagine if you've got a bubble, and in that bubble you've got all your worries in life. You put everything inside that bubble, you blow the bubble up until the point that the bubble pops, and when it pops, everything in there just gets destroyed. And he says, just imagine that is your troubles. And he says, if you ever get into this thing where you can't rationalise things and you can't calm yourself down, just take a step, sit down, pull over, think of the bubble, close your eyes. You try it and you feel like a silly sod to start with, but it actually does work. I think it's just a way of calming your mind. It doesn't make your troubles go away, it just helps calm your mind.
With a HG&N, me and my mate, just sit down, have a bit of curry. Fresh naans are absolutely gorgeous for like £3. It's ridiculous. It's the staple diet now for the Brits, isn't it? Well, they're saying the tikka masala is British, aren't they? They're saying that was invented in Birmingham, aren't they? Things change and evolve. Everything does. You know, using different meats and stuff. I mean, you don't get many goat curries over here, do you? It's all chicken and beef.
I always knew, even from being 5, 6, I just wanted to go in army. I never thought I'd have to leave the army. I always thought I'd either retire there or it'd kill me. So I weren't bothered about my GCSEs or nothing like that. Getting used to Civvy Street, I think. When you're getting told when you've got to eat, when you go to toilet, everything, to ever be on your own devices, it's a bit strange. You get used to a routine, and I weren't in army that long, to be fair. I know people who have been in there 20 years, so it must be harder for them coming out. Yeah, completely different, but you get used to it in time, like. Can't get a decent job because I messed around with my GCSEs and stuff like that, but yeah. I wouldn't change it. No, I wouldn't change anything. I'd go back in now if I could, yeah. Absolutely. Hopefully my kids go in. I'd love it.
BT's Actors Studio, he specialises in method acting. He's one of the only teachers in the UK who specialises in method acting. It was great fun. My God, it was a challenge. Holy shit. But yeah, really, really, really good fun. You know, you learn so much about who you are that you've buried for so many years, because we're conditioned to have that stiff upper lip and not show certain emotions or to be a certain way. And acting is about getting rid of all of those things and being someone else for a time. So yeah, it's a really interesting, intense way of learning how to act. And it is definitely not for everyone. Some of the people on that course really got into the method way of doing it. I didn't, but there's definitely lots of things there that I've learned that I will continue to use in my career. Although I've done a method acting course, I wouldn't class myself as a method actor by any stretch of the imagination. But I am method trained, I suppose. Use what works for you, that's the most important thing.
The thing is, I'm psychologically addicted to marijuana because, you know, it really changed me as a kid. I was highly strung, boisterous young lad, and every time I drank alcohol, I'd always end up in some fight or some row or some stupid kind of thing, which caused me no end of trouble. And, you know, once I found marijuana, it changed me as a person. It calmed me down and made me a better person. And, you know, to be honest with you, since my mum got diagnosed with the cancer and then there was nothing that the hospital could do, I mean, I immediately went on the research and I was getting hold of cannabis oil with 85% THC in it and trying to do anything I could to save my mum, which was pretty much in vain. But, you know, cannabis is perhaps on one of the lower levels of psychedelic, and although it gets such a bad press, such a bad reputation, I think it can be for anything. I mean, I don't smoke a bag of weed a night. I roll a joint, and that joint will last me 2 to 3 days because I only need like 3 to 4 puffs just to kind of give me that release in the shoulders.
Yeah, it was very specific indeed. And I don't mind you asking. I was sexually abused from the age of 7 to 15. And that was what had always been the shame around who I was and what I was trying to hide. And it's a really significant part of the journey because what happened at that point was that I separated myself from my own childhood. At that point, I became 2 different people. So if you talk to a child, they accept you for who you are, they feel you for who you are, and they only have fears and conditions around their personality that are placed by other people. You know, they don't have the barriers until someone creates them or an event creates them. See, people are shaped by experience, and obviously every single one of our experiences together with our natural genetic personality is completely and utterly unique. But I hadn't realised that. I just hadn't realised that separation had happened. That I'd been detached from my own natural feelings and development as a child. So part of my journey in mental health was having to go back to that point where I was separated in order to become the whole that I am now. Because I hadn't realised for 40 years that I was two separate people there. And once I'd reconnected with that child, everything just fell into place, didn't it? Everything just fell into place. I mean, there is no real plan. I think sometimes when we plan, we create our own borders and we create restrictions or expectations that we may or may not be able to meet. And I think planning is a form of control, and I think losing the 3D in inverted commas control takes you to a higher place and you don't feel the need anymore. And that is where you just go with the flow, that's the spiritual side, and I'm just going to let my journey shape itself, and that's where I'm at. So I don't really have any plans.
I think I've always been on the border of having a condition. But I think with the sort of things that have happened over the last 6 months and the extra worry within my life, it sort of put me over the line and made me go seek some help. I was always the type of person that thought mental conditions were all in your head, which is obvious, but they are all in your head, of course. But I used to think, if you say you're suffering from depression or anxiety, pull yourself together, will you? Until you suffer from it yourself and you realise actually it is a condition, I can't describe how it makes me feel. And there's no physical reason for it to make me feel that way. It just does. But I'd always have a worrying sort of mind, and I'd always have a mechanical type of mind. I have to rationalise everything. When I get on a plane, for example, I have to know the type of plane I'm on, I know the procedure of it taking off and landing. And I think a lot of it is a control aspect. I do a lot of racing. I race cars. I like to do go-karting and stuff of that nature. And I like to go super fast speed. But that's because I'm in control. If you put me in the passenger seat, I hate it. I can't stand it. I don't want to be anywhere near it. Being the passenger and being out of control, it doesn't sit with me.
I've got 5, she's got 4, so I suppose it's 9 altogether. So it's busy. My oldest is 15 at the moment, and my youngest is 2. Well, 2.5. She's nearly 3. But hers are 14. The youngest is 4, nearly 5. It's busy time, yeah. My youngest don't, because my youngest is in Thailand. Her mum's Thai-like. Yeah. FaceTime her a couple of times a day and stuff, and I go out 3 or 4 times a year whenever I get a chance. I split up from my wife, and 4 days later I went to Thailand with the lads, as you do, and met her and got her pregnant straight away. And yeah, we never really had a relationship or anything like that, but I've got a daughter out on it, so it's all good. I know, I've been married 3 times, I have. Yeah, married and divorced 3 times. 5 kids with 4 different women.
No, so my dad came over when he was 7 with my grandparents. He married my mum when he was 20, which was an arranged marriage. Mum came over from India and been happy ever after. I've done quite well over the last few years. Progressed quite quickly, so this redundancy's kind of come as a shock. But you just crack on, don't you? Just crack on. I'm getting married this year. Thank you. However, I can see my bank balance depleting very, very quickly, so the need for a new job is quite a big need, but it's getting there. It's one of those where there's a low point and you have to get back up. I met her through friends. We took quite a traditional route actually, that we only met like a year ago. As Indians, there's 2 ways of doing it. You can either fall in love and go the long distance relationship, or you can get introduced, have a chat, have a few dates, and pretty much close to the time know she's the one. And that's what happened with us. After the 6th, 7th date, we pretty much went, right, I think you're the one. It's quite interesting that a lot of people that get married that have been in love or whatever had a long relationship. Within 3 years or 2 years of getting married, they get divorced. While if you think about the old traditional ways, where, for my parents for instance, they're in arranged marriage and they're still married 50 years down the line. Yeah, it's an exciting time at the moment. Busy, hectic, scary, but very big, yeah. Need to feed 500 people somehow.
She's the one who has all the dreams. What dreams have you had, Pip? Every morning she wakes up, tells me she's had a dream. One of them was a lion. Was he eating us?
No, a fox was eating you, Jenny, Leanne and...
Dada and Nana had to come rescue you.
I'm actually preparing myself at the moment, psychologically, for the recommended psilocybin dose, which is the 5 gram psilocybin, which actually takes you onto that real level of I don't know, I just don't know. But I know it's going to take me to the next level. Yeah. And that's the problem when people take mushrooms and stuff. They're not taking enough of a dose. You've got to get the dosage right. So I'm taking the Terence McKenna recommended dose of mushrooms. Well, that is 5 grams. Got to eat them, yeah. Start at 8, got to get your setting right so you don't eat for 6 hours before, and then darken room, no music, couple of joints rolled, because apparently if you need to change direction within a trip, then the cannabis will change direction for you. So if you're not enjoying what's happening, then there's various tips and stuff. Yes, I mean, my sister will be my trip sitter for me, making a lot of confessions here.
How far north are you hoping to get then? Bloody hell, that's a fair bit of old travelling, isn't it? I could never move back down. I wouldn't want to move back down. I'm happy enough with what I'm doing now.
No, it's absolutely fine. I don't have a problem with that. So that was a really important part of my own journey, because I never told that story until about 4 years ago. And I chose, by not saying it out loud, to be a victim. A lot of people do that. But I'm saying it doesn't define me. It does define my experience growing up and not being able to become a fully emotionally balanced adult. But also, if you want, you can put in the fact that what didn't help that journey was my father's suicide when I was 17 years old, when he was 38. And then 3 years later, my older brother's suicide at the age of 22 when I was 21. So, when you put that into the mix of what my family had already determined their tragic existence was going to be, now you can see how important it was for me to just break that cycle.
One of each. Boy's the eldest, girl's the youngest. Boy turns 16 this year, girl turns 13. And obviously we were young parents. Had my first child at 20. Well, I'm always worried. I'm always worried about the future, present, past, but I think it's going to be very difficult for the next generation, especially my kids. Getting on in the property ladder is becoming impossible in certain circumstances. The amount of deposit you've got to get together now, and the house prices, etc. We're reasonably lucky in the location we are. Knoutsville and above is sort of relatively reasonable price, but obviously living in London and places like that, I really don't know how anybody's ever going to get onto the property ladder living in that area. Obviously money and things like that, that's obviously going to be an issue for the kids, and they seem to have lost, and again my kids certainly have, they've lost that get up and go. I can't get my kids out of the house. I always say that if we ever had a zombie apocalypse, I would survive it because I've got the know-how and the ability to fend for myself, and if I have to go and live in the woods to avoid getting eaten, I'll probably do it. Where my kids turn around and say, is there an app to do that? Is there an app that's going to allow me to survive the zombie apocalypse? And what do I do if my phone runs out of charge? I don't think that mother helps them, if I'm honest. She morally coddles them. I don't think we're in a different world. I just think it's more prominent now. My generation, things were happening, but you weren't really seeing them. Where now, everything's in the public eye, and obviously, you can't look at a child these days without obviously being accused of something. and I think our kids have lost a little bit. Like going out at 9 o'clock in the morning and your parents didn't worry about you until tea time. My mum always used to say, "Oh, don't worry, he'll be back when his stomach's rumbling." And they'd never worry about you all day. You'd be in a mate's house, or you'd be out playing football somewhere, or whatever. When now, I don't let my kids stay at anybody's house until I've physically vetted them and make sure that they're sound people, and I know what the dad does and the mum does and things like that. Really, 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 really strange, to be fair.
I'm a Christian, so yeah. I've always believed, but I just didn't really give a damn. Then I became a Christian. I think it was 2009, 2010 time? Yeah, Church of England, yeah. If I'm not working, I'll go, yeah. I believe in heaven. I don't really believe in hell, if I'm honest. I suppose they could go hand in hand, but I believe everyone goes to heaven. That's what I believe. God's forgiving, isn't it? There's got to be more to life than this, hasn't there? You'd have thought. Yeah, we hope so. I was actually in prison, and I don't know why. I just had an urge to start reading the Bible. Never had it before, and it just went from there. Strange, really. I never thought I'd be sat reading a Bible, but it happened. Yeah, well, this chapel where you can go to on a Sunday and you can speak to the priest there. You make an appointment, but yeah, you can speak to him and that. I think it was because I doubted myself a lot more. I don't know how to explain it. You question yourself to make sure it's the right thing or not. I've got a conscience now. I never really did. Well, I probably did. I probably just didn't listen to it.
No, I'm religious at the same time. I'm Sikh. So there has to be a point of religion in that. I have my beliefs. I'm a logical thinker, but a believer. My decisions are always logical and always are made with the long term in mind. Short, sharp decisions are fine, but I will always look at the longer term vision. Hence why I don't really give a shit about the small decisions or the smaller things in life. As long as it comes eventually, it doesn't really bother me. Reincarnation. It's how you lived your life. If you've been good or bad, then you go lower down the pecking order, basically. And that is reincarnation. So you might have been great in this life, and you'll be like king in the next, or wealthy person, or whatever. Unlucky person, or however you want to see it. It all depends on how you've been in your current life, or your past. Yeah, it's a constant evolution.
We end up doing a lot for memories like this now. This is going to go down as another memory. Do you know what I mean? Straight away.
We just like memories, don't we?
That's what it's about. We collect memories. There are some places, it's like, we love travelling. Absolutely love it. And we love meeting new people. So this is the best of the best. That's it.
We're meeting somebody now. He's writing a book.
Yeah, so what got you into writing?
I mean, we live in an idyllic little village at the moment, which has got great state schools, full facilities and stuff, but it's just a life of consumption. And my daughters are now getting into devices and stuff, and I can see how quickly they're becoming addicted to those devices. I'm driving a car, I'm putting £1,000 worth of fuel in the car every month, which I'm dumping as CO2 into the environment. And I just don't feel like I'm doing something positive. And obviously with a mortgage and having a single salary coming in for the last 9 years, it means in fact I've spent money that I haven't got. I've got money on credit cards, loans and stuff, keeping things going. Always imagining that the wife's going to go back to work pretty soon, and she's struggled with getting back to work, and we're just very fortunate that we have a pretty low mortgage and a property which is in high demand where we could make an absolute fortune, so we can basically clear our debts. It's a complete change of life, and hopefully something that's going to take us a little bit out of our comfort zone. Exactly. And, you know, they've still got grandparents that live in X. I mean, her dad had a heart attack a few weeks ago. He had a stroke a number of years ago. So it'll be really nice to be close to the family and give them the joy of the grandchildren, and also in some ways preempt what may or may not happen in the course of the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years. Who knows? If one of the in-laws would pass away, then the wife would want to go back to X, and she wouldn't want to just go and take a funeral and say, right, we're off now. So although that's a very difficult conversation to have, it's still a practicality which should be considered. So if we were going to do something like that, now's the right time, before my oldest gets into secondary education. Gives her a time to adjust and bed in. So I think timing and everything and that opportunity is here and now.
I used to pick up the old army boys going back down to the barracks and all that as well. That's another thing. You don't see any of that anymore either.
And that's where I'm saying the will and the determination to not be subjected to external experiences is where the spiritual aspects of us lie. You know, so many allow themselves to be the victim that is destroyed by experience. You know, a lot of people that are really spiritually inclined will tell you that we shape our own experiences all around, and that, you know, it's a bit of a pill to swallow, because that means in a way we've created our own tragedies, and that's quite high up thinking. It's a bitter pill for most people. You know, don't be ridiculous. I didn't ask for that. You know, the way you naturally and automatically want to blame somebody else for something is where the victim mentality comes from. And I just know that I don't need to blame anybody for anything. And it all just happened, and I am the person who had to weather that storm, and I did, and it's not a badge of honour. It's just me wanting to be who I was all along, and whole and balanced. And now I feel I've achieved that, and that makes me really happy. And that's where my joy comes from.
So what's your name? I don't know your name.
We're not far from the junction, I don't believe. I couldn't tell you, mate, if I'm honest. I just follow sat-nav nowadays. You don't need a map.